just picked up at ABC15 is WWE Hall of Famer, good old JR Jim Ross joins us this morning. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate
it. Good to see you.
Now, big reason you're here tonight. Ringside with Jim Ross, 8 p.m. I think it is tonight.
Exactly.
At 50 West Jefferson Street in Phoenix at Stand Up Live. General admission tickets, $25. VIP tickets, $75. First of all, what does a VIP ticket get you?
Well, you get in early. We have a private meet and greet. We personalize the autographs, photo ops. I sign their memorabilia, and it's a couple hours to spend with those special guests. So it's a pretty cool deal. That's what I'd recommend doing. But
of course.
Tickets are at the door. I think tickets are on sale this morning since 9 a.m. So
they're also at phoenix.standuplive.com. Phoenix.standuplive.com. So just tell us, what can people expect when they come out tonight?
Hilarity, Shane. It's going to be hilarious. It's 40 years of stories with these guys that never grew up. Some of the most famous personalities in the world that I travel with, work for. They work for me. It's just some great stories there. Some Phoenix-oriented stories as well. And then we go to the Q&A, and you find out very quickly that when you're if you create this congregation environment where wrestling fans know that they're not going to be teased or bullied, so to speak, they have a couple of beverages, and you give an open mic.
Yep.
Then it's very unpredictable and very entertaining as a rule.
Now, can you give us a sample, maybe a tease of what you're going to be talking, maybe a Phoenix-related story tonight?
Well, I can tell you that I came to Phoenix to do Wrestle War in '91, and I remember El Gigante was a 7'6" guy that Turner hired. Dusty Rhodes the late Dusty Rhodes was the booker.
This was in WCW.
Mm-hmm. And Dusty and I, and Missy Hyatt, and El Gigante went drinking, which is a sight for sore eyes. But the bottom line of it is that Dusty was teaching El Gigante how to dance. So you got a bunch of drunk people and a 7'6" guy who had no rhythm and learning to dance. El Gigante did like Missy. He liked Missy a great deal. And but stories. I came here to do WrestleMania 26. I'd had my third bout of Bell's palsy, facial paralysis, and I had done Undertaker and Shawn Michaels the year before at 25 in Houston.
Right.
And they had requested I do their match. Shawn, his last match. And I thought I was well enough to do it. Mr. McMahon and did not. And I got pulled after already being here. I brought my tux, I brought everything ready to go, and so that was kind of a disappointment. But you grow from those situations. You grow from that stuff, and because every day is not going to be a great day unless you choose to end it that way.
Right. And I know that there's a fellow WWE Hall of Famer who's about to be President of the United States, Donald Trump, and you had some interactions with him when Donald Trump and Vince McMahon had wrestlers to represent them for a hair versus hair match at WrestleMania. What are your memories of Mr. Trump?
Well, it was 2007, and the reason I remember that is that Jerry Lawler and I both went into the Hall of Fame in that year, that class. And the night before the big match at Ford Field, which earlier in the year had hosted the Super Bowl, we had our Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and Jerry and I went in together, and then Trump had his thing the next day. I can tell you this: Trump is a unique cat, and that's hello.
Yeah.
But he is a guy that he doesn't want to fail, and when I was around him, he really wanted to be one of the boys.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a rich guy with a silver spoon to be one of the boys, but I do know he's a workaholic. He was always early. He was always willing to do things. Look, the guy took a stunner.
He did. He wasn't a good one.
No, but hey, I took them too, and they looked like a cow on ice.
Well, I think you gave one at one point too. I think.
Oh yeah, well come on, I tried, but it was crazy. I was miscast. So Trump, I didn't have any issues with him, and he was a nice guy. He was very polite, very professional. He loved meeting and talking to the divas.
Of course.
But who didn't?
No. And he wants to do what's best for the country. He doesn't want to fail. That's probably a good thing, right?
I think it's a great thing. I think he's egocentric enough and such a workaholic that he doesn't want to go down in history as the worst president of all time. And that, of course, is remained to be seen. I can only say, I got no dog in the hunt here, folks.
Yeah.
That give the guy a chance. And if it had gone the other way, I'd say the same thing about Hillary.
Well, he's going to be president, so we have no choice.
Yeah, it's a done deal.
All right, let me switch gears a little bit to UFC Fight Night in Phoenix coming up on Sunday, also at 8 p.m. at Talking Stick Resort Arena in Phoenix. Main event, Yair Rodriguez versus BJ Penn. Also got Joe Lozon versus Marcin Held. Court McGee versus Ben Saunders, John Moraga versus Sergio Pettis as the main card for the evening. What do you expect from that event?
I expect some guys that the only guy that there are other guys. You're a diehard MMA fan. Some of these names are very familiar with you.
Yeah.
If you're a casual MMA fan, they might not be. BJ Penn's the big star of the show, so I think that they're relying on getting a great TV rating by the return of BJ Penn, who's one of the great fighters of all time. But the UFC is going through tremendous change, man.
Yeah.
Is Rousey coming back or not? Mike Goldberg, their longtime voice, gone. The Fertittas, gone. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of transition there. So I think it's going to be a very unique year for UFC. And one of the more constants they have is Dana White. Yeah. And Dana's a lot like Donald Trump. He doesn't want to lose. And he's richer than hell now, so good for him. But I've gone to a lot of UFC events. I think anybody that if you're a fan and you can go, you should check it out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it reminds me of old school pro wrestling. A good guy, somebody's going to get booed, somebody's going to get cheered.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're fighting. It's just logical. So I would love to be a part of that show. I think it'd be fun.
Let me go back to Ronda Rousey real quick. And I know you've already talked about this, but coming off a couple losses now, including the last one in less than a minute. Two questions, really. Do you think she has a future in UFC? And then also, possibly, rumors about her maybe going to WWE one day. Could she have a future there?
Well, I think that I think she needs to change camps. She has to change coaching staffs. She came to the fight with Amanda Nunes completely unprepared for her striking, and everybody knew that that's what Amanda was going to do, beat her up, and she did. Punch, punch, punch. So striking defense is a big issue. So Ronda, I would not recommend her coming back at all unless she changes coaches. Okay. But I do think she has a lot more gas in the tank. I think she's very marketable. I don't think she'd ever go to WWE and be a regular. Mm-hmm. I can see her coming to WWE and doing a big one-off event like at a WrestleMania or something, without question. The last two losses in a real sport has nothing to do with a fictional sport.
So you disagree with Jonathan Coachman, who said she's really not marketable now in WWE. You think she's still very marketable?
Look, I taught Coach everything he knows, but not everything I know.
Yeah.
Kidding. Coach, good guy. But I know I don't agree. I do disagree with him.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys had that same opinion, but I can just tell you, McMahon is the P.T. Barnum of this era. If anybody can get Ronda Rousey hot, relevant, and a must-see, it's Vince. And I think she's got a lot left in the tank. Plus, let's not forget she's buddies with The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's some synergy there that you would not pass up.
Absolutely. And segue here to WWE. The next big event, next big pay-per-view in WWE is the Royal Rumble. 2 weeks after that is the Elimination Chamber in Phoenix. And we talked about it a little bit before we started talking here, but what are your thoughts about the Elimination Chamber match in general? And can you just, real quick, maybe just describe it for people who don't know what it is?
Well, the Elimination Chamber is a huge structure that surrounds the ring. It's not like a typical cage, the old wrestling cage match thing. And they have these platforms on the outside that's just steel. There's no covering. Yeah. And I can tell you from being in charge of the talent roster, the guy that did the hiring, a lot of guys that didn't want to be in that match.
Not a fan.
It's not wrestler friendly. It hurts. You can't learn to fall on something like this. You can't. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. So it's a very dangerous structure, and you can Google it and look on the artist drawings of the Elimination Chamber. It's a very intimidating structure. I think it's a fun one to watch if you're outside.
Sure.
But boy, if you're in there, whew.
Which is true of most wrestling matches, probably.
Correct.
Yeah. The rumored main event of that pay-per-view, and it's always subject to change. Rumored main event: AJ Styles versus John Cena, 2 out of 3 falls, which sounds like it might be worth the price of admission in itself.
Absolutely. John Cena has been the face of that company for years.
The face that runs the place.
Yeah. And I hired John back in the day, and loved his attitude, loved his work ethic. He was a longtime fan. You could ask him trivia questions, and bam, bam, had the answers. I talked to his strength coach, his head coach in college. He was the captain of the football team at I can't remember the name, Springfield College or something like that. But John's been the guy. But right now, AJ Styles is the best, in my opinion, bell-to-bell wrestler in the world.
Yeah, I would agree.
And he can get a great match out of anybody. And John's a gamer. He's a ball player, wants to win, and have a good performance. When somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute, aren't those endings predetermined? Well, yeah, I'm talking about win the night, be the best match on the show.
Yeah.
So that would be a great match to see. So there must be something big going to happen at the Royal Rumble that would necessitate the episodic booking
Well, I think they're going to have a championship match at the Royal Rumble, so you would assume they're going to have a rematch possibly at Elimination Chamber, so that would make sense. Let me talk to you about the women's division in WWE, because it's so much different than it was back in the Attitude Era in the late 90s and early 2000s. You have women who are not only beautiful, but are fantastic wrestlers and are allowed to have long matches, tell a story in the ring. Do you think that's been a positive for WWE?
Yeah, I think I like the fact that women are being booked as athletes and not just a sex object.
Yeah.
I loved the roster that I hired back in those days with Trish Stratus and Lita and all those ladies. Great roster, and some really good in-ring performers as well. But I like the fact that they're more athletic. I say back to, it's the Ronda Rousey effect.
Yep.
Ronda Rousey's athleticism, her body type, made it very prominent and possible to usher in these other ladies that WWE's using now. So I like it. I like the fact that they're being, you had Charlotte and Sasha Banks closing Raws, closing pay-per-views.
Right. Ric Flair's daughter Charlotte, who's just been fantastic in the ring.
Great, the D1 volleyball player.
Right.
Great athlete. So I like that. I call it the Ronda Rousey effect, and she's had a profound influence on what the women's division of WWE looks like. Hence, they're no longer called divas.
Right. Take some questions from viewers here in just a second. I got one more question of my own for you I wanted to ask. 2 former Cardinals on the WWE roster who could wrestle at the SmackDown event at Elimination Chamber next month. We got Dean Muhtadi, now known as Mojo Rawley, and Tom Pestock, now known as Baron Corbin. Real quick, what are your thoughts on both of those guys? How far can they go?
Both of them got really good upsides, and I'm not saying that because I'm in Phoenix and I play for the Cardinals. I'll just tell the truth. Mojo's got a load of charisma. He has to find, what are you, fish or fowl, so to speak. But really athletic, an amazing work ethic. When I used to go down and watch the kids work out in the Performance Center in Orlando, his work ethic, and his desire was beyond reproach. The other kids got a great look. Yeah. And Baron Corbin, they seem to be using him pretty well right now. So we'll see how that works out. But they have the foundation, the work ethic, and the athleticism. Now can they learn the showbiz side of it and be able to connect with their fan base? Right. If they can make a lot of money for a long time.
Well, Baron Corbin himself seems like a kind of a throwback kind of bad guy. He's like, I don't care what you think, I'm all in it for me. And it seems like those guys are kind of missing largely from WWE these days.
I think Baron Corbin doesn't mind being a villain and being booed. A lot of the villains in wrestling today are more concerned about how many T-shirts they're selling than anything else. So they work for the crowd pop instead of the crowd to boo and jeer them. Yeah. And there has to be a decided difference there. There is a line between good and evil, and I think Baron Corbin's a guy that doesn't mind walking on that other side. Okay.
Let me ask you some questions here from, we got one from James Damon here for you, JR. Mick Foley has said he might be out as GM of Raw. What are your thoughts on Mick Foley in a general manager role? Great wrestler, hardcore legend. What are your thoughts on him as an on-air kind of manager in general?
Mick's very entertaining and very loyal and very reliable. And I was one of my best hires. Of all the guys I hired, Mick Foley probably was the greatest overachiever.
Yeah.
I think Mick is really, really good, especially when they allow him to add a little humor to his shtick. But if I'm thinking, I'm biased because I love the guy. Yeah. I think he should always have a role, some way, somehow, in WWE.
Well, and really how he got over with the fans wasn't necessarily like being thrown off the cell, and of course you're famous. Well, somebody stop the damn match part of your career, but it was the sock puppet that really got him over with fans. Mr. Sacco. Yeah. Another question here from Oscar Gomez. Opinion of Brock Lesnar in the UFC. He's been banned from the UFC for
1 year.
For 1 year. Do you think he has a future there, or do you think he's going to maybe stay in WWE long term?
Well, Oscar, I'm glad you wrote in. I think that Brock Lesnar could have one more fight in the UFC for the payday. He sells tickets and pay-per-views. And nothing else, people will pay money to watch him get his ass whipped. So that's that's fine. So I think UFC, MMA, maybe one more. He's not a young pup anymore. I see him sticking with pro wrestling and WWE. He's got a great gig there. He's making 7 figures plus for working part-time. Right. How many guys are like that?
Yeah, and Goldberg's kind of entered that fray now as well.
Goldberg's back. Goldberg's going to wrestle in February in a pay-per-view. That'll be here, right?
That's a SmackDown Live pay-per-view. That's the Elimination Chamber. The Royal Rumble match I think he's going to be in. He entered himself in the Royal Rumble.
He's committed to wrestle in February, too.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that one's going to be here. That's a Raw pay-per-view, I believe.
Right. Well,
unfortunately.
Billy's a good guy, another part-timer. But I think Lesnar's is back in the wrestling. Again, you'd be silly if you're USC, once his suspension is over, to not consider it.
Right.
He sells tickets and pay-per-views.
Another question from Michael Farley. JR, do you think CM Punk will ever come back to WWE?
You know, and I learned a long time ago in wrestling and showbiz in general, you never say never.
Yeah.
But I would be shocked if he came back to WWE. However, and he might disagree with this, I would not be shocked if he came back and did a wrestling gig. Maybe New Japan, something along those lines.
Ring of Honor, possibly? Go back there?
Possibly, or another group. There's a lot of talk of other groups that are, looking to get their toe in the water. You know, McMahon's got the monopoly.
Yeah.
And they do a phenomenal job. They're the big dog in the yard, so other dogs now are barking. We'll see if how it comes about. But I don't think Punk would ever go back to WWE, but I could be wrong. They could hug and make up.
The way I look at it is, if Bret Hart can come back,
yeah, there you go.
Anyone can.
Good point.
Callie Post, what are your thoughts on Goldberg coming back? We just talked about that a little bit. Wins his first match, but then Sting lost his first match. So maybe were you surprised that Sting came back and he was booked to lose, whereas Goldberg was booked to be incredibly strong against Brock Lesnar?
I think that, here's the thing. I believe that the difference in the two was the reception that Goldberg got in Denver when he came back the first time after all those years, 12 years, I think.
Right.
It was overwhelming. I think WWE called an audible right there, wisely so, and said, let's change our game plan. But Sting's booking was a little bit conflicting.
I was surprised that he lost at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't know what the thinking was on that deal, but I think that WWE left a little money on the ground with Sting, and then unfortunately got injured working with Seth Rollins, he got a bad neck, so but he's happy and one of the nice guys. I'm doing an appearance at WrestleMania at a thing called WrestleCon with Sting and Ric Flair. The three of us are doing the opening ceremony for that convention with a big Q&A. So he's a good dude.
Okay. And one last question here, and we'll wrap it up because we're going to be on TV here in about 15, 20 minutes or so here on ABC 15. One question from, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sharik Qureshi. Sharik Qureshi. I apologize if I just butchered your name. Do you think social media is having more of a negative or positive influence on developing wrestlers?
Really a good question, whatever your name is. I'm not going to try to butcher it either, young lady. It's a blessing and a curse. We all live with it. I'm on Twitter at JRSBBQ, and sometimes I find it monopolizing my time, my thoughts. Just ask my wife. You're on your iPad again. It's okay. So I think for some of us, like I'm doing my show here tonight in Phoenix, part of my promotion was on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So it helps some of us. But man, the rumor, the innuendo, the gossip, and we all love the gossip, TMZ world. So it depends on your perspective, but I think it can be a bona fide blessing, but boy howdy, it could be a curse.
It seems like there are some wrestlers that kind of, like if they're bad guys on TV, they kind of play one on Twitter as well, like Kevin Owens maybe. And then there are some that kind of don't really care. Do you think if a wrestler's a bad guy on TV, he ought to play one on social media as well?
Without going overboard and becoming crass and coarse and vulgar, absolutely. Have the edge. Carry your swagger and your TV persona outside the envelope there. And again, too many guys want to be liked, and they want to sell shirts or caps or whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
And they forget that their role is to be disliked.
Right.
And I've always said that the greatest villains in wrestling are the guys that create so much angst that you will load the kids up in the family truckster, head down to the arena, pay big money to park, pay big money for tickets, pay big money for a hot dog, just because you want to see the villain get their ass whipped.
And you just want to go and boo them.
That's it.
Tell them that they're...
Simple as that. Hey, the NFL does this. I would say most teams that come in to play the Cardinals are the villains. They're the heels.
Right.
They don't come in and say, "Oh, we love Phoenix and we embrace it. I'm going to go to the Children's Hospital." No, they're coming in to play the Cardinals and beat them.
Right.
So they're the bad guys.
Right.
So it's and look at the crowd. I'm a Steelers fan, a big Bruce Arians fan.
Yeah. We talked about he called the winning play against the Cardinals in the Super Bowl.
I was there, baby. My wife. That was a great celebration. My wife's a Pittsburgh girl.
I agree to disagree on that one, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. wrap it up here. We're going to be on ABC15 here in just a few minutes. Wanted to mention one more time, Ringside with Jim Ross tonight, 8 p.m. In Phoenix. Tickets at phoenix.standuplive.com available right now. JR, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Seeing you.
And catch JR on ABC15 here in just a few minutes.